Good afternoon. I'm Scott Mulwee. I'm chairman of the Burke County Commissioners, and I'd like to welcome you to another chapter of Fireside Chats. And I'm here with a really good friend of mine, Mr. Alan Wood with BDI. Acronyms are it still takes getting used to all the acronyms in government, but BDI stands for Burke Development, Inc., and they're the economic engine for the county. And so I just wanted to say hey to Alan and tell us a little bit about yourself and what Burke Development does.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate the chance to be here today. I am Alan Wood. I'm President and CEO of Burke Development. We are the economic development partnership for Burke County. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We are funded by local government entities, the county, and 6 municipalities. We also get some private funding and grant funding to help us do our work. And our goal is to help increase the wealth and the economic status for people in Burke County. And we do that by helping existing industries grow and recruiting new industries into the area, and by a whole lot of other partnerships across the county and the state.
Well, what Alan, and he's being modest, he's one of the best economic development people in the state, and he's recognized as so. And he makes it look easy for us to make decisions, because what you see at the county level is when he comes before us when it's time to agree to a package to recruit or expand a business. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before it ever gets to us. So kind of describe what the process is for bringing in a new industry, for instance.
It's one of my mentors said it's not rocket science, but we do work with rocket scientists. And that's sort of trite, but it is true. It is a lot like connecting the dots. You don't just walk in and it happens. You create a basis of contacts throughout the industry. There are site consultants, there are brokers, there are people in state government, people in local government, construction people, and so you really create contacts with all these people, your local industry. You continue to have conversations with them. That's where the majority of your economic development projects happen. Ours has been a little different for the last 5 years because we had to backfill a lot of empty businesses, and the fact that we're replacing a industry that basically controlled our economy for 2 generations. So ours was a little bit different in that we announced a lot of new companies over the last few years, but it's gotten back to where now we've helped a lot of our local business and industry grow. And that's really what you like to see, because you want them to be healthy and you want them to be happy here. And then you mix in some new ones. And so you got to have buildings, you got to have sites. That's product development. And we've been in the middle of product development. Some of that happened before I got here. Then we've finished building out infrastructure at the business park with a water tank, finding sources of funding to help make that happen. I was just thinking yesterday about the amount of grant money that we have received in the last 5 to 10 years to help with these projects. And if you add all that up, it comes to a pretty significant number. So all of these things you roll together, and that's what makes a successful economic development effort.
When you're talking those numbers in the last 10 years, and obviously you just can't pull a number out of the air, but I would think that it would be in the tens of millions of dollars.
It's probably over total incentives from the state, grant money, you're well north of $50 million.
And so that is a tremendous investment in the county, and a lot of folks, like I said, don't get to see that behind the scenes, and we take it for granted, but we don't take you for granted, because we do see how difficult it is, because we're competing against over 3,000 other counties across the United States. And everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and when we look at those, there's some challenges here you and I have talked about, and I find some of them interesting. The one that you've brought up, but you talk about the challenges you see, but then we're going to talk about the positives afterward.
Well, have been through and we're going through a time that's unprecedented with moving from an abundance of labor to a shortage of labor, going through a pandemic and a changing workforce and a changing, what work looks like. I said it wasn't rocket science, but there are high-tech jobs in industry in these companies. You've got a company that's doing millions of bottles every day, co-packing beverages. And you've got products that supported the creation of the vaccines during the pandemic. You have high-end machine shops that supply fixtures for just about every major industry, not only in the country but across the world. So if you see when the next space flight happens, there are companies here that actually had a hand in making that happen. And so it takes a lot of skill sets. And so it's not industry as usual. And so working with, it gets into other partnerships, working with the local school system, working with our Western Piedmont Community College, with the other community colleges, trying to make sure that you have the labor force that you need. There's apprenticeship programs that we've helped support. We just had a high school internship program this summer that we're hoping to double or triple the size of in the next 12 months. All of these are just a piece of the process because it's going to require different skill sets to be successful in the future, and you can't just wake up one morning and have that happen. So it's building blocks, and you build upon it. We've talked about housing situation and the fact that we have a lot of people who would like to live here, and we don't have places for them to live, affordable or otherwise. So that's a conversation that we've had and will continue to have. I think we're in a tremendously strong position for the future if we just continue to take care of our business.
Absolutely. And one thing that Alan had brought to my attention that is a challenge is daycare, for instance. We take for granted it's so expensive, and of course it also is not available to a lot of folks because the workforce shortage affects that as well. So little challenges like that make a huge difference. But on the positive side, we're sitting in nature's playground, and we'll have Ed Phillips on at some point talk about Tourism Development Authority. But we're very fortunate, and we take for granted where we live, and we also take for granted that when they're looking to move here, they're looking at what's the tax burden, for instance. Well, we're one of the least expensive counties in the state. I know we're in the bottom 20 as far as tax burden across the state. They look at that. They look at schools, as you mentioned. They look at, obviously, health care. And they look at quality of life. And we've got all those things going for us. And so, we got a lot of sellable things. And when we're looking at some specifics, I know, for instance, the obvious, you look out in California, they have problems with water. What are our strengths as far as natural resources?
Well, yeah, we have spent, the county and our partners have spent some time and energy developing a site. We have, I think, it's either the best or the second, one of the top two business park sites, which, if everything goes well, we will have a building coming out of the ground shortly. But that just doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of time and a lot of energy to locate it, get control of it, and develop it. That's a major asset for us. We're working on a couple of other sites. And to give you an idea, the town of Drexel took control of a former Drexel furniture site. We've been working for 6 years to get that site cleaned up, to get money, to extend the infrastructure, to grade it. Someday, and I'm hoping soon, there'll be a building come out of the ground on that site. Just remember, it will take 6 to 7 years to get that site under control, get the money together, clean it up, extend the infrastructure, and grade it. That's the kind of effort that it takes, and the partnerships. There are 6 different funders on that project. You got Golden Leaf money, you've got ARC money, you've got CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, you've got Department of Commerce, you've got the town of Drexel, EPA money. So it takes all, that's what it takes to have a successful project. We've had 4 or 5 different funders help us with the business park. And that goes back to the amount of money that, the water tank was $2.3 million. Luckily, our local burden on that was only 25% of that. And we will get that back as soon as we create new tax base there. But you have to go to that level to spend those money. So you have to have sites. And once you have that available site, the things that you touched on are all in the mix. To our county and our local municipalities' advantage, they have been very supportive looking at incentives. Incentives are not the most important thing in a project. Without them, though, you don't even get to play. So you have to answer that question first, and then you look at, does it make sense? And probably the biggest evolution, though, that we've seen is, can you supply the workforce? And it used to be that came in number 4, number 5, because you had plenty of workers. 20 years ago, it was not this discussion. Today, after saying that your site works, the next thing is, okay, where am I going to find the people? And so we continue to try and address that. That's why we need the housing to grow our population. That's why we need our community college and our school system at the table. Our local business and industry, making conversation, having these conversations with our schools and our students. And, I've seen tremendous progress in the 8 years that I've been here. And so every day I get a phone call and another partner wants to come to the table. So I'm very, very heartened that we still, even though we've had a lot of success, I think that we have some things that can just help us build upon that for the future.
And one thing Alan has been great at is being very creative. And one of the things that he touched on earlier was we had a lot of old inventory, like buildings that sat unused. Well, he about put himself out of a job over the last couple of years because he's backfilled all those because of all the recruitment we've done. So we're being creative, and we're getting the business park, finally getting ground broken on that very soon. And then we're also looking at some other locations that are very attractive, one being the Hickory Airport. And that is we're working with our partners down there in the city of Hickory to see what possibly could happen down there.
That airport, I think, is a major untapped resource. A lot of people may not know that the bulk of that airport is in Burke County.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that land around it is. So we ran that through a Duke Site Readiness Study. We know a lot of the capabilities. There's some infrastructure needs. We were able to get some money to extend that infrastructure, which means that we can more readily develop that site. And, it takes all these partnerships. These things don't just happen by accident. And so every one of these is a building block upon what you're looking for your future endeavors.
Absolutely. One thing Alan does, another thing he has that really supports him is a great staff. And so that goes without saying, but I did want to mention that.
I'm the pretty face. The other ones do all the work. I've got a great staff. I'm the idea guy, and they're the nuts and bolts, and they keep me from making missteps, and the follow-up that they do is tremendous. I cannot give them enough credit, and it's amazing how much work those two ladies do. And Hope by herself is fully capable of running this, but this is her home, and Peggy does a tremendous job of keeping everything on the administrative side, and so I don't have to worry about it. So that just frees me up to come up with these wacky ideas. Sometimes they work.
Well, most of the time your ideas have worked. So we've been very fortunate. We've brought in thousands of jobs. As you mentioned, tens of millions of dollars of investment over the last 5 to 10 years. And it's been a real pleasure working with you. And I'm sure we've got some more deals to come in the upcoming future. But speaking of that staff, I know that's going to let you go play a little bit of golf this afternoon. You got to practice, and so and you well-deserved break. So due to time constraints, I will just thank you for coming here today and kind of explaining what the economic arm looks like, give some clarity to that. And please tell everyone on your staff I said hello. And I want to thank our staff that sets these up for us. Don't take them for granted either. And I would welcome any suggestions about anything you would like to see us cover moving forward on our Fireside chats. And please get on our site and comment on anything that you think we can improve upon. We want any kind of constructive criticism. We're willing to take it. So that being said, I hope everyone at home has a wonderful day, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.